keep our continent in poverty and incapacity to provide the needed health services for our population. Honorable ministers, the success of all this need an entrepreneurial mindset and discipline, running our sector with the same dedication that leaders in private enterprise have for their own personal business development. It is important for this that you chose your team for success and sustainability. Countries have proven that we need to make decisions based on evidence. For this, capacity building of our teams, innovation and fighting misinformation is important. All those notions are at the origin of the creation of the University of Global Health Security, better known as UGG. As shown in this article of the International Herald Tribune, the leaders of the health sector in Rwanda have been through such executive education program to help shift the mindset and to develop an entrepreneurial way of working. The University of Global Health Security is a new university based in Rwanda that is building the next generation of global health professionals, doctors, nurses, researchers, and public health and policy experts, to leaders and change makers, including on gender matters and other key issues of the health sector. Our ultimate goal is to reimagine health education to ensure that quality health care reach every individual in every corner of the globe. And we are proud to be associated to CDC Africa in this fantastic ministerial executive leadership program. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Agnes, and thank you for the advice that you provided there on how ministers can actually be champions of the new public health order, including the fact that the governments need to work as one to be most effective, and also the development of new leadership, among many other critical points that you have raised. So thank you very much for that input. We had mentioned at the beginning that our Honorable Minister of Burkina Faso has sent in his delegate to address us with the opening remarks. So before we move on to the next session, which will be the moderated session, let me now invite Professor Hervé Yen, who is the Director General of the National Institute of Health of the Republic of Burkina Faso. DG, you have the floor.
Bonjour, bonjour à tous. Alors, j'aimerais d'abord excuser Son Excellence, Monsieur le ministre de la Santé et de l'Hygiène publique du Burkina Faso qui s'est absenté en dernière minute pour se rendre à l'intérieur du pays pour débloquer une urgence de santé publique. Alors, il me charge de remercier toute l'assistance et ses pairs pour cette opportunité qui lui avait été donnée de donner son mot d'ouverture et remercier chaleureusement cette audience qui est très importante pour la poursuite du développement du système de santé. Moi, je suis professeur Hervé Yen, je suis professeur de santé publique et je suis le directeur général de l'Institut national de santé publique de Burkina et vice-chair du réseau africain YANFI actuellement. Alors, donc, il faut dire que nous sommes tous reconnaissants de cette initiative actuellement qui porte haut maintenant les valeurs des dirigeants de la santé publique dans nos différents pays. Et il faut reconnaître aussi que le continent a traversé et a enregistré des grands progrès au niveau de la santé publique ces 5 dernières années. Et dans la lutte contre les maladies infectieuses, en témoignent ces 5 dernières années les maladies contre Ebola et la COVID-19 qui vient d'arriver, et les réflexions établies sur les perspectives de vaccination pour nos populations. Cependant, il faut reconnaître que le rôle de ces maladies infectieuses et de ces maladies non infectieuses est de plus en plus déstabilisateur pour nos systèmes de santé. Déstabilisateur pour nos systèmes de santé. Et elles sont de plus en plus présentes dans des contextes de l'Ouest et de l'Afrique centrale, et marquées donc par des guerres, des violences communautaires, et en plus donc de cela, nous constatons le déplacement massif des populations. Donc ce contexte doit être pris en compte aussi dans le développement de ce leadership des dirigeants de la santé et de ce leadership au niveau continental, parce qu'il faut élever maintenant le niveau de la vision de ces dirigeants de la santé publique de nos continents. Donc, une vision qui doit être beaucoup plus holistique et prenant en compte donc, toutes ces complexités au niveau continental. Les leçons apprises de la gestion de la santé publique et de nos systèmes de santé nous renseignent que actuellement, les attentes des populations sont de plus en plus extensibles et imprévisibles, d'où le besoin d'aller vite et bien, et donc de travailler sur le leadership donc, des dirigeants de systèmes de santé et de la santé publique, mais aller vite et bien et mieux, et pour mieux développer cette santé publique au niveau de l'Afrique tout entière. C'est pourquoi nous sommes ravis que cette initiative donnerait des bons conseils à tous ces dirigeants du continent pour aller vite dans le développement de ce leadership. En tout cas, nous, on vous remercie pour cette audience donnée et je témoignerai toute notre reconnaissance auprès donc du ministre de la Santé dès son retour. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Professor Hervé Yann, for your opening remarks delivered on behalf of your minister from the Republic of Burkina Faso. I've just been given a request to enable the Director General of the WHO, Dr. Tedros, to give us a few remarks before we go into the next session. Dr. Tedros, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you. I didn't want to affect the program actually because I came to listen and I didn't know I had a speaking role. But I'm going to another meeting. I will try to follow maybe. I don't want to say much, but first of all, thank you so much to Sanait and John for starting this very important program. And I'm glad to be part of it. I know this will really help in building leadership capacity. And second, for me, it has even a very important meaning. I remember John Kengasong raising the Agenda 63 more than 10 times in one speech. The Agenda 63 is very important, our guide, our roadmap. And because of history, I was part of it. The final document was actually agreed in Bahir Dar in 2013. That's marking the 50th anniversary of the OAU, the African Union. And it was, document that clearly puts the Africa we want. And would like to use this opportunity actually to thank Dr. Zuma for her leadership on that document. And I think in order to achieve that, capacity building is key. And what you're doing is exactly that. And I'm really glad to be part of it. And I'm glad that the Agenda 63 is alive and there is commitment from our leaders to make it happen. And very fortunate to be part of it. Then the second part on Africa CDC, Africa Medicines Agency, these institutions are really key. We're actually encouraging other regional political organizations like African Union to do the same, because these institutions will really help to prepare the world, as we have already seen it from Africa CDC itself. So all my support, full support, and thank you so much again, and all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros, for that pledge of full support. I was just commenting on your first statement there and thinking to myself, it is not possible for you to attend a meeting on health and not say anything. So thank you very much for accepting that impromptu request for you to say a few words. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Winnie.
All right. Thank you.
And thank you to Agnes also. Very nice seeing you, Agnes. And thank you for the excellent presentation.
All right, thank you. Let's move on now. We have now come to the moderated discussion. I have here with us. The first one is specific to Dr. John. Do you think the Ministerial Leadership Program could play a role in advancing health and economic security on the continent of Africa?
Absolutely, without any doubts. I think, as Professor Fisiha mentioned, and you just heard from Dr. Tedros, the Director General of the WHO, health and economic development are now extremely, more than ever before, interrelated. And we cannot tackle health as a social issue anymore. It has to be seen in the light of an economic developmental issue, in the light of a security issue. And I'll even extend that to a national security issue. And I underline the word national security, and I use the word deliberately. So I think the short answer to that is absolutely. And we have to really frame health appropriately, that it's not longer seen like the ministers of health just leading a portfolio that deals with treating people, but that it deals with a portfolio that is entangled across all several ministers, several ministerial departments. And that is why this ministerial program is extremely valuable. And we really hope that the first cohort will be inspiring and will just be as successful as what we saw during the Kofi Annan Global Health Leadership Program.
Thank you very much, Dr. John Nkengasong. Dr. Senayet, thank you for underscoring the criticality of having such a program, which is quite timely for the continent. Now, considering that there are unique challenges in countries, how will this program be delivered in order to address context-specific needs of health ministers?
Thank you, Winnie, for that critical question. In fact, that's the very reason why we're pushing for this ministerial leadership program. And we're honored African Union, Africa CDC equally sees the importance. You know, historically, African leaders leave the continent and go somewhere else to learn about ministerial leadership. So the very purpose of this ministerial leadership program is to say, how can we curate a leadership program that takes into context the specific challenges we face in this continent? So there's going to be a lot of shared learning from people like John Nkengasong, who will be at PEPFAR, Dr. Tedros. We're in a very unique time. If you look at global leadership, about 6 or 7 of the UN institutions are being led by people of African descent. In health, you know, from Winnie Benyema to Dr. Tedros, we have incredible leaders. We heard that health cannot be seen in isolation. It's economics, it's politics, it's social affair. We have people like Dr. Ngozi, we have people who are in the finance sector, IMF. So we're gonna bring all these people to the continent in the same room with the ministers, along with past ministers who can share their experience. What were the pathways? What did they go through? How did they tackle challenges? And also bring in real life problem ministers are facing and helping them by creating a team around them, try and helping them solve the specific problem they're facing in their own context in their countries and in their region. So we think this is high time that we focus, you know, bringing global expertise, but also blending that with local leadership and local experience. So we're quite excited. It's going to be, as John said, it's being co-created by the ministers so that we actually can hear what are their challenges, what are they facing, where do they need support, what is their legacy. So it's a quite exciting time, but the ministers are going to be the ones to shape it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Before I let you go, could you just expand a little bit more about how this program can be a useful instrument to improve health outcomes, particularly for women and girls? You spoke about this earlier, but perhaps a little more detail.
No, absolutely. As I was acknowledging earlier, you can have all the extraordinary policies and programs on paper, but if you don't have strong leadership, especially political leadership at all levels, this will not be implemented. So an effective health minister is not just on writing good policies or rolling out or writing programs, but also working in a multi-sectoral way to bring other ministers. And we've seen extraordinary examples of this in the continent. You know, I'm very pleased to see Prof. Benjamin that we collaborate with in Benin, Minister Leah in Ethiopia, and several others where governments and leaders are now focusing, how do we bring, you know, you can't make progress, whether it's economic or any kind of development, while neglecting half of society. So how do we shape programs that are looked through the gender lens? How do we include women and girls have access to essential services, whether it is family planning, reproductive health services, PAC, CAC, whatever is needed. So ensuring, and also how do we see women in leadership? It's very common that we see a lot of women enrolling in nursing school and medical school and school of public health and midwifery school, but we don't see them rising to the top for leadership. So this approach, we hope, is going to be able to support women ministers succeed, but also create a pipeline. And when we have ministers that are working in a multi-sectoral way and that have the political, diplomatic, technical acumen, they will be able to deliver for the health and well-being of their communities. So we can't delink the services they deliver and their ability to do so.
All right, so thank you very much. Let's move on to Professor Agnes. You spoke earlier, Prof, about the need for governments to work and deliver as one. Now, can you expand a little bit more about how that collaborative and multi-sectoral approach can deliver this program, especially as it pertains to other ministries that have a bearing on health outcomes? Hello, Professor Agnes. Okay.
Hello,
I will ask, yes.
No, let's continue.
All right. Thank you very much. I think perhaps Prof has dropped off. All right. So thank you very, very much. Perhaps Dr. John, you might have a comment on that.
Yes, Wayne, as you can see, I'm coming on and off, but my connection here is dipping and coming up. So if you can just reframe that, please, that would be very helpful. I have Silas here trying to get me to a smooth functionality.
All right. I was saying to the Prof that she spoke earlier about the government's, the need for governments to work and deliver as one. So now applying that collaborative approach to this program to see how it can help to deliver this program, especially as it pertains to other ministries that have a bearing on health outcomes.
No, absolutely. I think if you listen carefully to what Professor Fisiha mentioned, she talked about two things that at least based on my hearing and listening and understanding, she was alluding to. She talked about leadership at global level. Dr. Tedros being at WHO, Dr. Ngozi at WTO, me potentially, hopefully next week, moving into PEPFAR, that I think what she's alluding to that is that the stars are aligned for the continent to really come together and make a determination as to how we can move forward as a whole and use the different assets that are now playing out in and are fully aligned to supporting Africa's health agenda. But without the leadership, so if we leave that only at that global level, at the level of the Ngozis, the Tedroses, the Nkengasons from Washington, the folks in Winnie, I mean, our sister Winnie at UNAIDS, then it will not cascade down to the community, where she alluded to. So the translational component of that is the critical role of the ministers, that the ministers begin to articulate the continental agenda, rally behind the new public health order. If you look at the components of the new public health order that Professor Agnes outlined beautifully, they are multi-sectoral and they include gender. They need to have gender across workforce development, across engagement with the private sector, across institutional development. So I think it is the integrated holistic approach that we really hope that this leadership program will take. And even to the extent that looking for resources within the national boundaries should be approached from a perspective that health is not just the Minister of Health's portfolio, but it's a cross-cutting thing that includes ministries of agriculture, ministries of environment, ministries of fisheries or wildlife, because we know that 70% of the diseases, emerging diseases, originate from animals. So how do you engage there? But it requires leadership. It requires leadership that the minister says, I'm not going to sit there and just look at my own ministerial department. I'm going to engage with other ministerial departments. I'm going to engage with the Minister of Finance and make sure that I make a case that in attributing a reasonable budget for health is not just about, it's not wasting, but it's actually an investment, because without human capital, you cannot count on any economic development or economic growth. That is what I think I heard them all saying, including Dr. Tedros. I'm very particularly pleased that he highlighted the fact that I deliberately used the word Agenda 2063 many times in a very short remarks. I did that deliberately because if Africa doesn't speak to its own agenda, its own aspiration, no one else is going to speak to that. I would like to implore the ministers of health here and those that will be enrolled in this ministerial program to say that they should always start their speeches, wherever they are, in Geneva or New York or wherever, by alluding to the African agenda that we want and link that up to the Sustainable Development Goals. That should be the mantra. Again, I repeated myself, if you do not talk about your own agenda, no one else will talk about your agenda in this complex world where we have competing priorities and needs that people are all scrambling for. The needs are just, the needs are infinite, but the resources are very limited. So we really need to make sure that the continent takes advantage of what Senai said about triangulating the human capital assets and leadership that has offered Africa in this time of period of history and make sure that it works for the continent.
All right, thank you very much, John. Before we move on to the next agenda item, which is the roundtable open discussion, I see that Minister Roble has his hand up. Minister, do you want to say something quickly?
Bonjour tout le monde. En fait, je voulais intervenir sur les discussions. Je suis arrivé un peu en retard, mais si vous me donnez par la suite la parole lors du plénière, je peux prendre par la suite la parole. Mais je peux intervenir maintenant aussi. Vous dire d'abord que je suis très heureux de participer donc, à ce type de réunion organisée donc, par le CDC Afrique, l'Union africaine. Je remercie également le professeur Fesseha. Bonjour professeur. Je suis très content d'être là. Nous revenons comme ça de Genève où l'Assemblée mondiale s'est tenue et immédiatement nous nous sommes engouffrés dans nos travaux respectifs. Et donc, je voudrais d'abord saluer toutes les personnes qui ont organisé ce meeting aujourd'hui. Le leadership, je pense que nous l'avons. Les ministres de la Santé c'est à eux vraiment de promouvoir cette leadership et nous devons collaborer ensemble. Mais moi, je voudrais juste dire deux choses. Nous avons besoin d'un cadre de concertation, mais régulier, entre les ministres de la Santé africains, mais un cadre régulier où nous devons se réunir régulièrement, quel que soit, qu'on soit dans la zone, dans la région africaine ou dans la région émeraude comme nous devons avoir un cadre commun où nous devons régulièrement nous réunir. Ça, c'est la première chose. La deuxième chose que je voudrais vous dire, dans ce cadre-là, nous devons échanger nos expériences, nos informations, parce qu'il y a tellement, l'Afrique, je pense que l'Afrique fait beaucoup de choses, mais beaucoup de pays ne le savent pas. Si la pandémie du Covid-19 a été, les pays africains ont le moins été touchés, c'est parce que certainement, on a de bonnes choses ici en Afrique, certainement. Il y a des choses que beaucoup de pays, de gouvernements ou des leaders, en tout cas africains, ont réalisé qui est bon. Et ça, nous devons échanger ensemble. Et nous devons échanger les expériences, les informations et surtout travailler. Et nous avons une belle expérience. Et je remercie ici vraiment ma collègue, Dr Tadesse, ministre de la Santé de l'Éthiopie. Récemment, nous sommes en train de travailler sur une collaboration transfrontalière où nous vaccinons, par exemple, toutes les personnes qui habitent dans le cross-border entre Djibouti et l'Éthiopie. Nous sommes en train de vacciner, par exemple, les camionneurs qui vont rentrer à Djibouti. Nous travaillons également avec les ministres de la Santé de la Somalie, par exemple, sur d'autres choses, sur les maladies infectieuses autour entre les frontières. Nous avons un système de surveillance commune entre nos deux pays. Donc, il y a tellement d'expériences, il y a tellement de choses que nous faisons au quotidien, mais tout ce que nous faisons, nous devons les échanger, nous devons vraiment informer nos collègues, nous devons échanger nos expériences. Et là, vraiment, moi, je voudrais vous dire ô combien je suis très heureux de participer dans ce type de forum. Continuons comme ça. Organisez-nous un cadre régulier de concertation, s'il vous plaît. Et je pense que chaque ministre va, je pense, avoir cette leadership pour tirer haut la santé globale, mais au niveau d'abord Afrique, Voilà ce que je voulais dire. Je ne veux pas vous prendre assez de temps, mais c'est pour vous signifier que vraiment merci d'avoir organisé ce type de réunion et allons vers le devant et organisons ces cadres de travail mutuels. Je vous remercie encore une fois. Merci à vous et je vous redonne la parole.
Thank you very much, Excellency Minister from Djibouti. We will indeed be coming back to you in this next session for your further comments. Let me just thank Dr. John and Professor Senayet for providing very comprehensive answers to the questions that we put to them in the previous session. All right, let's move on to the roundtable open discussion on ministerial leadership to advance health outcomes in Africa. And in this session, we have about 20 minutes. We are looking for general perspectives by the ministers of health present here. And Excellencies, given that this program is aimed at supporting you to shape your legacy contribution to improving health outcomes in your countries, we will then be coming to you to see what are your take-home messages that you would like to share that will capture your experiences, your needs, and your expectations. And as I say that, let me just say that we have ministers, the following ministers with us: Minister Leata Dese from the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Minister Benjamin of the Benin Republic. We have Minister Ahmed Roble from Djibouti, who's just been speaking to us. We have also just been joined by Minister Matume Joe Pala of the Republic of South Africa. We also have with us Dr. Richard Kamwi, who is the former Minister of Health of Namibia. So this is now your chance, Honorable Ministers, to share with us the main points that you would like audiences to capture, but also perhaps your needs and expectations. I will not be calling on anyone in particular. You can just kindly please indicate your desire to speak by raising your hand, and then we will come to you. Honorable Ministers, it's over to you. Okay, thank you. I see Excellency Professor Benjamin has indicated he wants to speak. Please go ahead, Minister.
Merci beaucoup. Et je voudrais saluer la présence du directeur général de l'OMS, Dr Tedros, du professeur Fizeha et des autres collègues ministres. C'est un plaisir pour moi de me retrouver avec vous après les jours passés à Genève pour discuter d'un thème quand même très important, la question du leadership des ministres de la Santé. Nous sommes dans un contexte actuel qui est marqué par la multiplication des menaces d'ampleur internationale, notamment les fièvres hémorragiques qui sont passées déjà, Ebola, Lassa et d'autres qui nous guettent. La COVID-19 qui nous a profondément marqués et ébranlés. Et là, la variole du singe qui s'annonce et que sait-on encore une menace qui va venir dans les jours à venir? Personne ne le sait. Et face à ces risques de propagation internationale de ces menaces, notre leadership doit nous aider à bâtir déjà à l'échelle de nos pays, mais également à l'échelle sous-régionale et puis régionale, un système de santé qui soit sensible pour détecter les menaces très rapidement. Nous devons donc renforcer la surveillance de tous les événements de santé publique grâce à ce leadership sur les équipes. Deuxième chose, un système de santé performant et robuste qui nous permet de riposter assez efficacement contre toutes les menaces. Le ministre et les responsables sanitaires doivent travailler à mettre en place des équipes de riposte qui soient bien préparées, compétentes, polyvalentes, car à tout moment, on peut avoir une nouvelle menace. Et enfin, un système de santé qui soit résilient, qui doit favoriser la continuité des services de base, quelle que soit la menace, son ampleur et sa durée. Nous avons fait face à la COVID. Et si on n'avait pas fait attention, les autres maladies auraient pu avoir le dessus. Et on aurait pu avoir plus de morts, plus de décès liés aux autres maladies, aux autres menaces de santé qu'à la COVID-19. Et à l'échelle sous-régionale et régionale, nous devons mettre l'accent sur la communication. Je crois que le ministre Ahmed Robel a insisté là-dessus. Nous devons mettre l'accent sur la communication pour le partage des informations en temps réel et surtout la collaboration dans les activités de détection, de confirmation et de riposte. C'est fondamental que nous puissions agir de manière collégiale. Mesdames et messieurs, je pense à mon humble avis que chaque ministre doit se rendre compte que son leadership est double. Un leadership politique dans son pays d'abord, pour favoriser l'allocation des ressources, comme cela a été dit au secteur de la santé. Deuxième chose, pour mettre en place une communication intersectorielle avec ses autres collègues, parce qu'ici au Bénin, avec le ministre, la ministre des Affaires sociales, le ministre de l'eau et des mines, le ministre des Transports, le ministre de la fonction publique et le ministre des Finances, évidemment, nous avons un dialogue constructif, permanent. Tout le monde sait aujourd'hui que la santé est au cœur même de tout ce que nous avons comme mécanisme de développement. Et c'est pour ça, c'est ça que nous devons mettre en place, devons mettre en œuvre. Les ministres de la Santé doivent affirmer un leadership politique assez poussé pour que tout le monde comprenne que la santé doit être au cœur du développement. Deuxièmement, un leadership technique pour mobiliser et motiver les cadres techniques du secteur à bâtir un système qui répond aux exigences actuelles dont j'ai parlé tantôt. Au Bénin, comme je l'ai dit, vraiment, nous veillons à ce que l'intersectorialité soit de mise. Et ça permet d'engager le gouvernement et faciliter la mobilisation des ressources. Au sein du secteur, lors de la dernière crise, ce leadership s'est affirmé encore une fois. Et je peux vous dire que ça nous a permis d'avancer. Mais je sais qu'il y a ce besoin qui est là, ce besoin que nous puissions vraiment faire ensemble, faire en sorte que l'ensemble des ministres puissent encore, s'il y a un plus à apporter pour que nous puissions encore mieux faire, c'est vraiment la bienvenue. Mais il faut faire un programme qui fait en sorte que dès qu'un ministre rentre dans la dynamique, est nommé aussitôt là, qu'on puisse l'accompagner. Cet accompagnement est fondamental parce que, comme vous changez de poste, vous arrivez à un nouveau poste, il y a cette période où vous cherchez. Et ça, il faut que nous puissions faire en sorte que déjà à l'entame, qu'on puisse instiller à ces ministres ce sens de leadership pour s'affirmer et vraiment défendre ces idéaux pour que la santé soit de mise au niveau de notre pays, de la sous-région de l'Afrique. C'est vraiment ça quelques éléments que je voudrais partager au cours de cette assise. Je voudrais encore une fois remercier l'Union africaine, le CDC Afrique et puis professeur Sira Senet pour l'opportunité que vous nous donnez de partager avec vous ces quelques instants. Merci.
Thank you very much, Minister. That is Minister from Benin Republic, Minister Benjamin. You've shared some lessons from your country, from your successful interventions from Benin, and in that regard, speaking directly to one of the issues that had been raised by the minister from Djibouti when he spoke about the need for ministers to share experiences. So we thank you very much for that, and also for taking some lessons from the successful interventions during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you so much, Excellency. We also have a hand up, and that is Her Excellency Minister Liata Dese. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Thank you very much, Chair Winnie. Excellency, is all protocol observed. It's a great pleasure to be here today on this Africa Ministerial Leadership Initiative. And a lot has been said already, but I just want to echo and add a few points. Where we are now in the pandemic, it's an obvious issue that the critical pillar in this past 2 years that we have learned is for the health system is really leadership at all levels. And particularly now where we are now evolving within the pandemic, where we are seeing how do we prepare for the new public health order, how do we restore our systems, but also not just preparing for a next possible pandemic, but what we are doing now is actually the main goal that we have as ministers of health for the health and well-being of our communities and population with access to quality health care. And I think this ministerial leadership initiative comes in a very critical time, and I do appreciate all who have really taken part to make this a reality, the Africa CDC, Professor Sanait and all. I really want to acknowledge that, and I want to say maybe quickly 3 points. I think one is definitely we need to be equipped with the needed competency skill, because this is leadership is a continuous learning. There is no end to it, and many of the critical skills have been raised, and particularly that working with the different sectors, the key competency to advocate for the health sector and really show with evidence the impact that investing in health has to not just for health, but also for the overall well-being economy of every nation. And this is not, of course, limited to working with other sectors, but a lot of different stakeholders, and including our heads of states, how we advocate and engage them in seeing that health is not just a social aspect, but it's a really wider issue. But also working with the public and more stakeholders, creating public confidence and engagement is really critical. So the different skills and competencies to be equipped is one thing that I would expect, of course, from this session, which I'm also very excited to hear that many global leaders from Africa will be engaged to share with the ministers. This is really critical. The second one, which also was raised, is about the opportunity of this initiative to create so much networking between the African ministers of health. This was a discussion we were having in the sidelines of the WHO as well. There is some small networks that have started in specific agenda that has helped us really see how much we can even share and learn from each other. Some networks on border work, like Dr. Ahmed said, but also a lot that we can share and network on as continents, but even as bilateral countries. And I think the third one is really within this networking. It's not just to learn from each other, the countries, but it also gives us, as we are still in a time where we cannot get the support we need from in-country alone. We need a lot of support globally. So I think this will also help us. How do we really have a stronger voice as Africa in the different global platforms and get the needed resources or support to the country priorities as much as we need? And I think this also network and initiative, leadership initiative, I hope will help us, keep us in this way, but also help us work more closely together as we move towards a better health system, towards the Africa we want. So these are some of the expectations I have, and I'm really excited about this initiative. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Leah Tadesse, the Minister of Health of Ethiopia. You have highlighted there the importance of investing in health, but also that the leadership is at ministerial level, as well as at heads of state level and other stakeholders involved in delivering on health outcomes. Thank you so much for that input. Ministers, we are still in your session. And this is a session where you are invited to capture your experiences, your needs and expectations with regard to the subject that we are discussing today. I see that Minister Benjamin, your hand is still up. Do you want to say something?
Non, c'est bon, je vais la rabaisser. Merci beaucoup.
Okay. I see also Dr. Joel Pashla has his hand up. Please go ahead, Dr. Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I don't have a facility here for my video. Maybe I can come back if you can ask the people who do the administration to enable me to have video, then I could come back.
If you really need video, then we will ask our...
I can go ahead.
But it is quite okay. You are very, very audible and we can hear you, Excellency. You may proceed, Excellency. Minister, kindly unmute.
Oh, sorry. When they put the video, I forgot to unmute. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson. And thank you for all the my colleagues, the ministers from our sister countries in the continent. And thanks to all the leadership who spoke earlier on. Firstly, I need to thank the Africa CDC for taking this step of initiating this ministerial leadership program, which I think can really be very helpful. We've all learned a lot from the pandemic. We have seen that strong political leadership is very important when you manage a challenge of this nature, of a pandemic nature, which not only affect the health services, but affect economics, affect social life, political life, and cut across. So in order to deal with this, you really need a strong political leadership. So sharing views on a platform like this will come very important. And of course, we'll all hopefully be able to share how do we also make sure that we can get maximum support also from our heads of state, because quite clearly, as we have seen with the pandemic, ministers of health alone would not be able to drive an adequate response to a pandemic of this nature, knowing that this is not the last, there will be more coming. We've seen that when we do get the support of our heads of states, we can be able to achieve more, even at the continental level, when the heads of states at the AU level, make particular decisions to pull the countries together. It's much more easier for us as ministers of health. So I want to just agree that political leadership is, of course, very important. And also through the support of the head of state, as said by earlier speakers, because when you have to deal with a challenge of this nature, you need to be able to also get the support of the colleagues from the finance, from the infrastructure, from those looking after the social services, education. You need support across the board from other ministers, and this will be best achieved again if we are able to learn how to make sure that we can get the support of our heads of state. But also, I think it will be a platform through which we can exchange experiences on how you're able to bring in broader society, because with the public health measures which many of us had to take, without the support of broader society, civil society, you are religious, and in our case, in the African continent, we also have traditional leadership in various areas, and without their support, and also business, and not be able to be effective in the public health measures, and I'm sure we'll be able to share those experiences. But also on the, not just continental, but on a regional level, from our side as the SADC region, we had to learn quite early that we are interdependent. We need to share information, experiences, share facilities. When we started, very few of our countries had access to diagnostics. Later on, the personal protective equipment, shortages of all that, we had to share information on how to source all those. And of course, later on, the issue of the vaccines also taught us that it was important that we work together. So I believe that this kind of leadership program will go a long way in preparing us to be ready for any future challenges as the continent and as ministers of health. So thank you very much, Chairperson. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Minister Patla from the Republic of South Africa. You have testified there, borrowing from your experience during the pandemic, on the importance of strong political leadership, as well as leadership from many other sectors of society, that multi-sectoral approach that was raised earlier on. You also raised the issue of interdependence, which is a strong point, the sharing of resources and the experiences that you've had within your region, which would be useful for other ministers on this platform. So we thank you very much for that contribution. I am just wondering, Minister Roble and Minister Kamwe, if you might have one or two comments that you'd like to put across before we close this session.
Non, merci. Moi, je n'ai pas d'autre chose à ajouter, juste dire que je suis très content de participer donc, à cette meeting, et je pense que échanger comme ça des informations, comme je l'ai dit, c'est un élément qui est fondamental. Il faut comprendre que maintenant, de toute façon, dans nos pays respectifs, les ministres de la Santé sont souvent à la fois seuls, mais aussi de soutien vraiment à la fois dans leur pays des autres ministres. Par exemple, nous aurons le lundi prochain, nous, une réunion sur les capital humain de la Banque mondiale où nous discutons avec les ministres de la Solidarité, les ministres de la Santé, les ministres de l'Éducation nationale, les ministres des Finances également. Donc, c'est vrai que nous ne sommes pas seuls, mais à la fois nous sommes seuls aussi lorsqu'une épidémie éclate. On regarde toujours les ministres de la Santé. Donc, les ministres de la Santé doivent être soutenus à la fois donc, intérieurement au sein donc, des pays respectifs, mais aussi sur le plan sous-régional et continental aussi. C'est pour ça que ce genre de réunion est très, très important et il faudra les multiplier. Et Inch'Allah, nous allons continuer à faire ce leadership. Voilà, encore une fois, merci et je n'ai pas d'autres recommandations.
Merci, Minister. Thank you very much for those additional comments. All right, I think that we've come to the end of the contributions in this open session, and it is now time for us, for me really, to thank again the honorable ministers that have made their very valuable contributions in that section, sharing information with each other and also raising critical points about the way they see the new public health order progressing in order to benefit the African continent and safeguard the health of African people. Thank you so much, Excellencies, for those contributions. Let's move on now to the section where we have our summary and way forward. And this will be presented by Dr. John Nkengasong, the outgoing director of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Dr. John, it's over to you.
No, thank you so much, Wayne. And let me, before I share my thoughts on what I've heard with respect to the way forward, use this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to all the ministers who are on this platform and colleagues. I see Minister Leah has always been there with Africa CDC and the African Union. Honorable Minister from South Africa, Minister Richard Kamwe, Africa CDC champion, and all the other ministers who are there. Sincere thank you for the last 5 years and a half that your support to Africa CDC has been unconditional. You have never failed to continue to guide our steps and own the process. I think this is a good example of the leadership that we are describing today. And where we've expressed limitations, you have quietly nodded us into the right direction. So that's how we've been able to collectively grow. So I leave Africa CDC knowing that you continue that support, that leadership. I leave Africa CDC knowing that it is in very good hands. The next leadership under Dr. Ahmed, who is acting as who is playing the role in this transition as the acting director, will continue to rely on all of you as we move forward in this in our journey towards making Africa a stronger continent and a continent that is resilient. I will. If you don't mind, Wayne, I would share my thoughts, but also invite Professor Senai to say a few words as we move towards the closing. And of course, Ahmed will conclude with some reflections there. So let me summarize what I'm hearing with respect to way forward. One is the consensus that this program is so much timely and well needed, and it will contribute significantly to achieving the next level of needs on the continent, which is a new public health order. That requires that we look at a multi-sectoral approach in a more integrated fashion to advancing the health needs of the continent. That is one. Second thing I heard was that health cannot and should not be seen strictly from the lens of a social affectation, but rather that the health ministers will be during the training of this, the acquisition of the training of this leadership program, acquire the skills, the competency-based skills that will enable them navigate the complexities of health, given that they tend to address issues that have been originated from different sectors of the society. And I think such a training program will be extremely valuable. The third thing I heard is that creating the linkages between this leadership program and the global platforms that are currently out there and enjoyed by African leadership is very, very important. And Professor Senat mentioned several Africans leadership programs. We're coordinating that and exercising leadership that brings all of that together will be very, very vital. And just to end, I would like to, as way forward, that this is just the beginning. Africa CDC will now work very closely with its partners to open up this, to begin to invite applications so that the first cohort of this ministerial program will be launched very soon. And we really are excited and looking forward to seeing some of the ministers that will be part of the first cohort to be present in Addis Ababa or elsewhere where the training will be. I think it is envisaged that this leadership program will be conducted in a rotative manner in Addis Ababa as well as other parts of the continent. So this is really exciting and innovative approach. So let me just conclude once more by thanking all of you who have joined this platform today, this morning or afternoon, depending on where you are, to the launch of this exciting executive leadership program, which coincides with the launch of AMA here in Addis Ababa. I can tell you how excited I am today that all of this is happening as part of Building Back Better, especially after a pandemic that we continue to live that, but have learned tremendous lessons from the pandemic. Over to you, Wayne.
Thank you very much, John, for that summary. I don't think there's anything else to add. You've captured absolutely everything, and thank you so much. I see a statement from Minister Tadesse saying, thank you, John Kengasong, my sincere thanks for your leadership. That was a message that came through on our chat. So thank you very much. You had said that you would have liked Professor Senayet to say a few words before we come to the closing. Prof, you have the floor.
Thank you, Winnie. Thank you so much, everyone. This is the closing. I think Dr. Ahmed will make one more remark to fully close us. But I really want to say thank you to all of you for your thoughtful and eloquent remarks. Dr. John, Prof. Anies, Dr. Tedros, esteemed ministers, your reflections and insights are so valuable. Thank you to all who took the time to participate, including our moderator. Dr. John, you truly hit the nail on the head when you said, quote, if we don't elevate our agenda, no one will. I absolutely agree. And transforming Africa's health systems and developing the continent and its people is and will always be our agenda. This is the kind of clarity of purpose we want to see in all our ministers and leaders. Their role is far beyond leading their respective ministers. They can be a voice for their country and continent. And I'm confident they will emerge out of this program armed with the need, everything they need to lead, advocate, and rise wherever they go. We heard from several ministers, Minister Robley of Djibouti, Minister Benjamin of Benin, Dr. Ministerial of Ethiopia, and Minister Fala of South Africa, and they all highlighted what became very clear is their yearning to come together, to share, to collaborate. As grateful as Africa has been and continues to be for the WHO, the way the WHO is organized, some of our countries are in the Middle East and the others in sub-Saharan Africa. So Geneva is the only place that brings these ministers together. So what we're hearing from each of them that came back from Geneva is that they were chatting on the sideline saying, how do we work together? How do we share experiences? So as John said, it seems like this program is being launched at a very critical time. I will now speak very briefly to mainly share my deep gratitude and frankly, immense optimism for all we can accomplish through this program and about everyone involved in this work. Africa indeed has people and they're ready to serve. As we repeatedly mentioned, Africa's new public health order will take each one of us to build and sustain. Our goal will always be to bring the best out of everyone in this room, the ministers that will go through this program and the workforce in our continent broadly. That will, of course, take resources, inclusive and committed leadership, and strong institutions for accountability and sustainability. I have no doubt that we will show up as needed and build an exemplar program that will inspire similar efforts elsewhere. And for those who are yearning to get together, our hope is to bring you together at the sides of the AU Heads of State meeting, as John said, in Addis, and every 6 months, wherever the meeting rotates. Please indulge me as I share two final reminders as we conclude this crucial event. First, never let inclusion and representation and leadership in all their forms become an afterthought. I talked about women leadership earlier. I'm certain that you will be core values and priorities, but wanted to reiterate that stays with you. A genuine transformation of any workforce will take an active effort to come up with creative solutions to these real challenges and make sure women and marginalized groups are not only included, but really centered. Second, let us all resist the urge to fall back into old ways of doing things. A new public health order requires a new mindset and a bold vision. You have heard Dr. John mention the significance of Kofi Annan's leadership when he was the Secretary General of the UN in helping create the Global Fund for HIV, AIDS, TB, and malaria. I think that shows us what is possible when we dare to reject limitations and imagine what is possible to best serve our communities. History is made not by maintaining what is, but daring to create what ought to be. So in conclusion, I'm always so deeply encouraged and honored to be a part of this conversation and witness the generation of African leaders taking charge of their destinies and stepping up to the plate to solve problems, not just in our countries, in our continent, but globally. We've seen them time and again, how global systems function, and it's high time that we bring all of them to help us to build and strengthen our institution and investing heavily in our workforce, in our ministers, and our leaders. Thank you again, and let's get to work.
Indeed, let's get to work. And in that same trend, let me now invite Dr. Ahmed Ogwell, who is the Acting Director of the Africa CDC, for his closing remarks. Dr. Ahmed.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Wayne. And good morning, good afternoon to all your excellencies who have made it to this launch event today. Dr. John, Senite, and all colleagues who are on the call today. Very simple task after hearing all the wisdom coming from around the room here. It's really three messages that I would like to pass. One is let us work together to Africanize this particular cause so that what comes out of it is really what Africa is all about. Part of the new public health order, our priorities are going to drive Africanization of this particular leadership program. Second is, and it has been mentioned here, that you as ministers be the champions of the program, so that wherever you are, speak about Africa CDC, the new public health order, and also this particular executive program. It will give it the visibility that it needs. It will give it the stature that really the program requires. And finally, is a commitment from us at Africa CDC that we will work with you, we will see this through, and with the very great support from our partners, particularly Senite and the Foundation, we are looking forward to making this work as soon as possible so that it becomes, envy is a bad word, but it becomes the envy of all other similar programs anywhere else in the world. So we commit as the Africa CDC team that we will be able to work on this and deliver. And allow me also a last word to say a very big congratulations to John for seeing this through. An idea whose time has come is a good idea. And I think this one, its time has come, and we are looking forward to John being part of the faculty that is going to engage with our ministers. I don't know whether the rules allow him to, but we'll make sure it happens one way or the other. And so coming to the conclusion of today, thank you very much for making time. Looking forward to a very, very good ministerial level executive program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ahmed, for those closing remarks. This brings our session today to an end, but let me just thank everyone who's been on this call. Let me start by acknowledging their excellencies, the ministers, Minister Leata Dese from Ethiopia, Minister Benjamin from the Benin Republic, Dr. Richard Kamwe, former minister from Namibia, Minister Ahmed Roble from Djibouti, and Minister Joe Patla from South Africa. Thank you so much, Excellencies, for having taken this time to join this session of the African Ministerial Executive Leadership Program. Let me also say a big thank you to Dr. John Nkengasong, Professor Senayet Fiseha, Professor Agnes Binagwaho, and Professor Hervé Yen, who spoke on behalf of his minister from Burkina Faso. Thank you to the organizers of this very successful session from the Africa CDC. And I was speaking this morning to Dr. Raj and Dr. Faith and Faith. So thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you to the interpreters who made sure that all of us were able to understand each other throughout this session. And finally, farewell to Dr. John Nkengasong. We worked very well together, communicating to Africa and to the world about the COVID-19 pandemic, and it made a huge difference, and it saved a lot of lives. So thank you very much. We wish you the best as you head for PEPFAR, and God bless. Thank you so much, everyone. We adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.